masculinity and femininity, the roles that men and women play, and so we wanted to start by actually doing a gallery walk. Have you guys done a gallery walk before? No? Okay. So I'm gonna actually pass those around. Take one. You guys do need a pen or a pencil. Is that something that you guys have, or we can maybe steal from the supply box?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So once you have a yellow sheet, grab those. Awesome sauce. Thank you. I'll take the one on that. Awesome. No, I thought that. Thank you. No, you're fine. Thank you. All right, grab a pen or pencil and come on back. Grab one quickly, come on back, come on. Awesome. Okay, so to start this conversation, we're going to do what's called a gallery walk. We have over on the front tables 7 different images, and these images come from different time periods, they look different, and what we'd like you guys to do is think about masculinity and femininity. And you can focus on one or just a couple of the images. You can look at all of them, it's your call, but we're going to give you about 15 minutes to kind of just circulate and take a look at them so that you can make some observations about what's masculine and what's feminine. Sound good? Does that make sense? Yep.
When you say 15 minutes, is that including the time to write it down, or is that
just kind of jot some ideas down. You don't have to write like, don't have to write a whole lot, but something that's going to spark the idea that's in your mind so that when we come back and talk about it, you're good. Sound good? Okay, questions? Okay, awesome. Let's go to it. I have them top to bottom so that you guys can kind of go around so that we're not all on one side, right? And if you need to, you can kind of number them just in your own heads and just kind of jot down some ideas that you guys have. Sure. Yeah. Like if you see her as feminine, what is it about her? Like, is it that she's wearing a dress? Is it the way that she's holding her hand? That type of thing. Does that help?
Is this right important?
You could read it. You could give it a shot.
I read this.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you could give it a shot.
Old English. Actually, technically, it's not Old English.
Very good. Do you know what English it is?
Yeah, it's not in Old English either. It's later. It's earlier. No, later.
Early.
It's early. It's actually, I think you're probably right. It's probably before that. So think specifics. If you think something is masculine or you think something is feminine, just kind of jot down what you think is masculine and feminine. So it's all about specifics, not just identifying one as masculine or feminine. Who wants to be the brave soul to start?
The more Shakespeare it got, the more feminist it got.
Okay, why do you say that?
Because the first right here,
This one?
I thought was pretty feminist
Okay,
because of what that little box is.
okay,
And I'm pretty sure that it's Queen Elizabeth.
okay,
And she wore married, she was pretty feminist.
Okay. okay. This image is actually from 1608. Can you believe that? And it came from a compilation of different images and calendars and like proverbs, that type of thing, that were common during that time period. And so you pointed out the little box that says, likewise you husbands give honor to the woman as unto the weaker vessel. All right, so it's cool that, like you said, it was maybe feminist, and that maybe they're saying, honor your wives, right? they're also recognizing women as the weaker vessel. What does that mean?
Not as strong.
Exactly. All right, so kind of think about that. Did anyone else read any of the other text in this one? Since we started with that, what did you notice about it?
I really noticed, mainly I noticed that, I don't know who that is, but whoever it was really saying, like, you men are doing all this sort of bad stuff,
Okay.
drinking, stuff like that.
Okay, right. You gotta behave yourselves, right? Right? Yeah, that's kind of what it is.
Look down on us, because you look what you're doing.
Make better life choices. Alrighty, cool. What did you want to say? You had your hand up.
I was going to say that I saw women being portrayed as kind of like weak and frail, and like they had to stay home and cook and clean, and I saw these stereotypes exploited to sell products, and then masculine all like further themselves from femininity.
Okay.
Femininity.
We got you. We got you.
Femininity.
Okay. All right, and I like that you said that the ads were actually exploiting the ideas, right? So
Like Dr. Pepper.
Okay. All right, and this is
I imagine some controversy.
all right. Yeah, and it was from what I remember. This is from 2011. Let me double check. Yeah, it's from 2011. It really wasn't a big deal. But the reason that this ad was, and this is actually two ads from the same campaign, Dr. Pepper learned that men weren't drinking diet soft drinks as often as women. And so they sort of exploited that, the idea of, well, be manly, drink a diet drink, and it seems kind of silly. Do you feel like they're maybe mocking it, or do you feel like they're playing into a man's desire to be manly?
I kind of see certain other companies today supporting that, such as like Old Spice,
Absolutely.
Very much that manly idea.
Okay, all right, definitely. Yes.
What I saw with that ad specifically, and the one beside it,
Okay.
was the fact that they were using femininity as like a synonym for weakness.
Okay, all right, that's our time.
Like they would also, in the earlier ones,
Okay.
it was the women, like Malcolm said, they were the ones who stayed back, and
Okay.
the men had more power,
Mhm.
but they were also ones doing other stuff.
Okay, all right, yeah, and these two actually come from about the same time period, right? Did you notice that?
Yeah.
All right, and
Give your wife vacuum cleaner for her.
absolutely, she will be the happiest woman ever if you give her a vacuum cleaner. for
Yay, more
Christmas.
cleaning to do.
Right? So, and it is, so this is more sort of mocking the idea or playing into that, whereas these, this was this was serious. From the 1950s especially, when you think about, like making your wife the happiest woman ever, it's giving her something to clean the house with, there's something wrong with that. This one is actually a beer ad, and so how is the woman portrayed?
Because it's drinking his beer.
Right? Yeah, like it is, she looks, I like that word. Yeah, stupid, right? But yeah, she's like this emotional wreck because she burned dinner. Don't worry, you didn't burn the beer, so it's okay, right? So it's sort of playing into that, again, a stereotype that's exploiting that idea that women can be over-emotional, especially when it comes to matters of the home, because that's their responsibility, right? Okay, what else?
For the vacuum,
Uh-huh.
it's saying to give her a Cooper and you give her the best. It's basically saying that women like to clean and they should clean more.
Okay, right, that was the woman's place during that time period, right? And what we'll talk about, guys, is this is actually something that goes back a long time. Do you know where it started? The idea of men being the head of the household and women being sort of charged to care for the children and take care of the home and so forth. Graham? Okay, yeah, it actually goes back to even primitive societies, right? Because it sort of stemmed from this idea that that men would go out because of their strong physical characteristics. They would go out and hunt, and so that left the role to the woman to cook the food. And there's also a religious aspect to it. Jesus was the head of the church in a sense, and so the man then was at the head of the household. So there are a lot of different social structures that sort of reinforced that idea. Does that make sense? All right. What else did you see in the posters? Any of the earlier images that you guys sort of noticed that you wanted to kind of point out? How about that one? Did anyone notice anything about this one?
She was reading.
Okay. All right. Was that peculiar to you? How did you sort of emotionally react to it?
I thought like it says the caption is the excellent woman, and that's kind of cool because they're reinforcing like women learning, which I thought was like not what they
Yeah,
did.
I thought most women back then were actually illiterate.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm going to use my cheat sheet. This is from 1692. DeVos, who created this image, he was actually known for his feminist work. And so because he's celebrating the education of a woman, this is kind of an exception to a lot of the earlier images that exist. So I thought that was kind of cool too. All right. Did you guys?
Can I ask something about that one? I don't know if anyone here knows. I had no idea, but I was looking at it and I thought that I thought it was really cool how much they were emphasizing education.
Right.
And then I was looking, and she was also like, dressed really well and had really cool clothes and things. And then I noticed the mirror, and I think it's a mirror.
I think it is too.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I was like, why the mirror? And I was thinking, I don't know, maybe like. I don't know, I wrote down like vanity question mark.
Yeah.
But then I also noticed the mirror was like tilted.
Right.
Tilted down, and I didn't know if maybe that's something that you
Also, she
read off of, or
Right.
I don't
She
know.
doesn't reflect in the mirror. If you look.
Right.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Agreed.
Like the
Yeah.
mirror is not tilted towards her, so it's not
Right.
like she's like looking at herself in the mirror.
Even
Right.
some part of her should.
Right.
So it's like block that out somehow.
Yeah. It could be because this is darkness from it. So I don't think this would be light if it wasn't a mirror.
Yeah.
So I think you're right, but I think vanity does maybe play a role in the idea too that the woman was a reflection of the man of the household. That's kind of the idea that I played around with. Is it even that you would want your wife or daughter educated so that you looked better in a sense. Is that too mean?
No, yeah. I was just curious if I don't know if the mirror had some other use,
Right.
like when you're like studying or something, to read off of. I don't know.
It could reflect light and make it lighter in the room.
Oh,
But-
yeah, I bet that's
so,
it.
Yeah, so that could be it.
Yeah, totally.
That could be it. I like the idea of playing with vanity though. It gives it symbolic value.
Well, yeah, because if the mirror was like straight up, it would be reflecting back
Right.
her. But I think you're totally right because the window's right there.
Yeah, that's
That the light comes in the window and then it
Right.
reflects down on her book, so it's actually to help her read, and that's why the mirror was tilted.
Could be. Yeah,
I think
definitely.
I'm going with that.
All right, cool. I like it.
I love it.
Cool. Okay, what about these two guys? These are the only two that we haven't really addressed. Say again?
What was happening here? I mean,
Okay.
I see this strange costume
Okay.
on the right here. And then
Okay, so this one first? Okay. This is an actress named Sarah Bernhardt, and this was a still image of her as she was playing Lady Macbeth. So I thought that was kind of cool because she was playing a Shakespearean character.
What I saw in that was that she was very plain.
Okay. Alrighty. What about the way that she's standing? Is there something feminine or masculine about her?
Feminine, certainly. It looks like she's needing support almost.
Okay. All right. So because she's leaning.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I like that. What were you gonna say? You agreed? Okay. Alrighty. This is the same actress playing Hamlet.
I wondered why that looked feminine.
Yeah. Right? And it's kind of a trick with your eyes because this isn't a photograph, but it's kind of cool to see the same actress play two different parts, one masculine, so to speak, and one feminine, so to speak. All right? So it's kind of cool. Is there anything that is, let's kind of focus on this one since it's a woman playing a man's role, what's feminine and what's masculine in this picture to you guys? Is it all masculine because she's playing a man? Think about the way that she's standing, think about her
she
costume.
has that same kind of leaning position
Okay.
as she does in the other one.
Okay.
What I see is that she's looking off of the distance as opposed to looking more at us.
Okay.
To me, that seems more feminine.
Okay.
Also, it looks like she's
bulkier down here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Be a belly or something.
Okay, alrighty.
That's good. Great.
Okay, cool.
What do
Anything
you-
else?
What do you think, Hamlet, folks? What scene do you think that is?
The one with where he stabs his
Well, he's with us, or?
Like he's on the.
Is it this
on
part?
the curtain.
What's that?
It looks like he's on
Yeah.
like a curtain. And he's like sneaking kind of.
yeah.
Okay.
That could be the scene where he stabs Polonius.
That's what I was.
Oh, he's about to
Could
maybe
be.
see Polonius there.
Could be any other
Interesting.
possibilities? I do like that idea.
I don't know. That hand gesture made me think he was like scared or something. Maybe
Right.
the ghost scene, possibly. But I do like the peek behind the curtain. I don't know.
Right?
That could be, it could be hiding some of the characters who are hiding themselves.
Could be, could be.
Definitely looks like a curtain.
Okay, yeah, I agree. So let's draw some conclusions about these images, about masculinity and femininity and roles and all of that. What are some of the thoughts that you have just about gender? When I say gender, do you guys know what I mean? Like, what's the difference between sex and gender? Like, you're sex, you're a boy, or you're a girl, right? What is it based on? Any idea? Mm-hmm.
Biological structure.
Exactly. Yeah, it's your anatomy, right? Your parts, okay? Whereas gender is more so about with what you identify, right? So when you talk about being feminine, in a sense, it kind of alienates people. Why? What does alienate mean?
To like separate.
Exactly. How could it be alienating? Any ideas? Say again?
Femininity.
Well, how could, if let's say, looking at femininity and masculinity, right? We have certain ideas that we typically associate with boys, with girls, with men, with women. Do you guys agree? Okay? So what happens then when, if I am a woman, but I have more masculine interests, how do people react to it? If we were to talk about our culture, our society, and so forth.
Kind of seen as strange,
Okay,
I would say.
okay.
Like, it's very masculine. It's like kind of freaks is what
Okay.
they outcast in society sometimes. Or sometimes they can be seen as like, we associate, there was an interesting diagram I found on the web, and it was like women and men doing certain things, and it was like if a man beats his wife,
Mhm.
it's incredibly like he'll go to jail and stuff, but if a woman beats her husband,
Okay.
she's brave.
Okay,
And we're all just people.
okay. All right.
So there's stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, and we typically associate certain behaviors, certain demeanors with different genders. But think about how unfair that can be and how that can make you feel if you don't fit into a certain category, right? Like, girls like pink. Not all girls like pink, all right? Boys like trucks. Not all boys like trucks. I'm a woman, I drive a pickup truck, and it's blue, all right? So, just kind of think about how this is something that we see in images that go all the way back to 1608, and still it's something that we kind of struggle with, because if we say a man has to be masculine, a woman has to be feminine, we're limiting them and making them feel like they're not wholly that gender, let's say, because they're lacking something, or they're not enough of something. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. So, any questions, any ideas that you guys wanted to put out? No? Okay. Mm-hmm.
My favorite color is purple.
Say again?
My favorite color is purple.
Rock on. Purple's a good color, right? If you said that back in the 1950s, how do you think people would have reacted?
I would be like, oh my god.
Okay, yeah, you're supposed to like blue, all right? You're supposed to like green, right? And it seems kind of silly to us, but this is still a conversation that we have to have, right? Because there's still sort of that question, all right?
Can I ask one thing on the purple question?
Totally.
What would have happened if you had said that in ancient Greece?
Do you like wine?
Anyone else know the significance of purple in ancient Greece? Julia? That it is the royal color, right? That it was, what Caesar would have been wearing, right? Who was, probably a picture of Greek
Right.
masculinity, the
Yeah.
conqueror of the world, right? And so it's interesting how the associations that we have with masculinity and femininity can change from time to time. It's
Right.
something that we may think as a generally feminine color, whatever.
Right.
At this time, who knows in a few years.
Definitely.
So back to what you were saying about like we associate certain things with certain genders. The fact is the fact because the problem happens is that a lot of the time it's true, but then there's those few exceptions, and that makes it weird. So we get used to it. It's like this makes sense. There's nothing wrong with this, and then there's that 1 out of 10 that isn't, and then it messes it up.
But should that one person though feel
No,
awkward
and
or
that's
like
what
a
I'm
freak,
saying.
for example?
That's what I'm saying, is that's the problem, is that we get set in our ways because we think it's okay because most people agree.
Okay, yeah, and it's scary, it's sad that we do live, or we sort of run with this system that does say, okay, everybody's alike, but then this one person, or two people makes, they're exceptions. So why do we react to them in a negative way? I mean, you'd think we'd celebrate it, right? It's good to be different. Agreed? I mean, I like setting myself aside from the crowd. I think there's something cool about that, right? And maybe you do too. So it's this sort of weird, it's this weird paradox, which is when it seems contradictory, but it's true, right? And so it's still this conversation that we're having, right? And there's so much importance to it because we shouldn't limit ourselves or others to certain stereotypes and certain roles and certain, just certain associations that we have. And so I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about that today, but then also talk about what Shakespeare had to say about it. Make sense? Sound like a good conversation? Okay, cool. So we're going to actually look at some scenes from Hamlet that you guys will continue to work with. But we wanted to work with these scenes to sort of see what Shakespeare is saying about characters and their masculinity and their femininity and the roles that they play within their families, within their community, right? And sort of just kind of draw some conclusions about it, because here we're having the conversation today, but he was actually using Hamlet to start a conversation over 400 years ago. And there's something really cool about that. All right, sound good? Yes? Okay, questions, comments, concerns? Anything else that you guys wanted to put out there? No? Okay, cool. So we have some scenes that we're gonna work with. Let me, do you actually want to tell them the groups that they're gonna be in?
Yeah, for sure.
Is that
I brought some handouts, and it just has everyone's group. It should be pretty, these scenes should be pretty familiar to y'all, because we gave y'all the packet last week with the homework in it, and all those scenes, hopefully you have that today, all those scenes are in your, were passed out to you last week in homework. So, here are the scenes. I'm just going to pass them around. Everyone should be able to find their name on them.
You want to grab a few?
Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
Some of the scenes, some folks will see their name twice. Thinking Julia, Alessandra, Graham, you'll see your name twice. In order to make the groups as even as possible, let's have Julia and Graham join the Scene 2 group. And so the Scene 1 group will be missing Julia and Graham. Scene 1 group is Morali, Dakota, Alex, and Soleil. Scene 2 group is Malcolm, Stella, Julia, and Graham. Scene 3 group is Charlie, Seth, who's not here, Mimi, and Heidi. And Scene 4 group is going to be Coraline and Rio. Yeah.
Alright, cool. So, there are a couple of things that we're going to have you guys do. The first thing, we want you guys to come together with those working on your scene, and you're going to have a conversation about two things. But first, I want you guys to grab your homework so that you can talk about what you found, the observations that you made, just about how Shakespeare was building his characters, right? And your conversation about that doesn't necessarily have to be limited to the scene that you were assigned. If there are other things that you noted that you think are really important, then kind of put those out there. And then from there, last week I think Carl also asked you guys to kind of write down or underline different words or lines that you had trouble with. So come together and use each other as resources too. And that way you'll have a little bit of time to work with that, and then we're going to actually give you a second task to sort of add on to it. Sound like a plan? Okay. Do you guys want to sort of figure out where you're going to go, or Carl, do you want to tell them where to head?
I mean, find a space.
And go.
Should we grab our scripts or the paper?
Yeah, grab your packets.
Yeah,
You'll need
grab
that
your
for sure.
packets and your,
Should we put these in our binder?
So, for Cole and Alessandra, you two will be doing, you two are assigned 2 scenes. Alessandra playing the Queen in the Willow speech. And give me 1 second, let me talk to the camera for a second. And Cole is going to be playing Laertes in the Willow scene. And then also, later, you'll be paired off in the Sullied Flesh speech. Alessandra, you'll be in Julia's group. Cole, you'll be paired up with Graham for Oh, that this too sullied flesh would melt. All right. Yeah, what's up?
How do we know when to switch?
What's that?
How do we know when to switch to?
Oh, they're doing a different scene. So you'll just work on it totally independently. Well, without Seth here, let's have you and Mimi for today. Hey, Mimi. So since Seth isn't here, let's have you and Charlie switch off on the Hamlet. Maybe find about halfway through and switch off as you like read through it or stage it.
Wait, but she's Hamlet too, so then I'll be.
So you'll start out, and then halfway through the scene, it'll switch, and Mimi will take up Hamlet. What's that? Probably. We'll probably spend some time in these roles. Yeah. Which king? It's King Claude.
Me and Morali are both.
Oh yeah. So look at your thing. So Morali's got the first speech up through line 51, and then you've got from line 52 to 133. So after this, you would switch in once Laertes comes out with his speech. So after this, use these numbers here. So this is all you. Scene.
Wait, so I'm Laertes?
No. He's the king up until there. After there, you're the king. Yeah.
Okay, so let's have you guys get into the groups. Let's not worry about roles right now. Let's just kind of look at what you observed about the
Stella
characters'
and I
skills,
are
and then
doing
also
that,
any
I
issues
think.
you underline.
Yep.
or
Right here, yeah.
Ready?
So
So
Malcolm,
where are our groups?
switch every sentence.
Where
That means
is
I go first
our
sentence, she goes
King's
second
address?
sentence. And then also, what are Julia and Alessandra doing?
They will be doing the same thing, except they'll be switching every sentence. You two will just be doing the speech, 2 different versions of it.
Okay, so there's 3 different versions of this?
Yes, 3 versions of it. Yeah. All will be revealed later. Don't worry too much about the role assignments at this point. This point is mainly about breaking up into your groups, asking your questions about, what lines you circled, what you've underlined, going over your handout as well. So, looks like we've got group 1 over there. Where's group 2? Group 2? Nice. Yes. Great. Malcolm, you're over there, group 2. Let's get group 3. Nice. Perfect. Great. We've got group 4 again. Awesome.
All right, so take about 10 minutes to just kind of talk through those 2 things, and then we will add to it.
Cool. So, I'll start over here if y'all don't mind. Let's go through the scenes and see what we got here. Give me 1 second.
So we're going to look at the Willow speech. It's one of my favorite scenes in Shakespeare. So it's a beautiful speech. I actually did the Queen's speech as an audition piece a few months ago. It was really interesting. So go ahead and turn to that page. It should be the last page in your handouts. Let me grab my script too, and we can start taking a look at it.
Their roles and all of that good stuff. And then also, once you've done that, then spend a little bit of time. Yeah, I would start with that and just kind of share your ideas. Alrighty? And then once you finish that, any lines you really struggle with and weren't able to find on your own, maybe use each other as resources. Sound good? Okay. Awesome.
Sweet. All right. So this is the scene in Hamlet. It's like towards the end of the play. So lots happened here. Hamlet has killed Ophelia's father. Hamlet and Ophelia really liked each other. They had like this romantic relationship. But then when Hamlet started acting crazy, things went downhill, right? And things got really bad between them. Hamlet actually killed Ophelia's father, kind of in this fit of passion. And here we've got, and then Ophelia basically like declines into madness. She becomes mad. She becomes like crazy, and she starts like singing these songs and like bringing people weird flowers, and she just like seems totally like broken down and totally crushed over what happened, with the breakup with Hamlet, and then Hamlet killing her father. And so in this scene, towards the end of the play, what's happened is Ophelia has died. The queen was looking after Ophelia, and when she was doing that, Ophelia drowned in the river. And so it's a really dramatic scene. It's like, very, really sad, obviously. And here we go. So Laertes is Ophelia's brother, and Laertes has come back to challenge Hamlet because he killed their father. So Laertes has come back to challenge him to fight. And before he gets a chance to do that, this is what happens to Ophelia. So let's go through, let's read the scene and see what happens. Let's start on right here at the start cue. So yeah, flip over that page, should be right there, perfect. Why don't you read the queen part and you read Laertes' part and see where we get.
She just kind of goes along with things.
Yes, yeah, she'll just follow the rules and give her some words and everything. Well, I guess, tells her their stuff, and then later on, like, Hamlet, drowned. Oh, what?
Scant the book. I know, it's hard. Poor leaves.
Is she a character that you dislike because she's weak, or that you feel for her? How do you react to her?
I was so mad at Hamlet. Yes, I felt like why are you doing something?
Right.
I mean, the thing is that she allowed herself, obviously, they fell in love with her. She went on and allowed herself to feel
Pendant.
Okay. Why do you think he rejected her?
well, I'm sure he didn't think it was
Coronet.
things about that and using their life and because he knows that you can't give up his act.
Right.
It's too risky, but at the same time he knows this is dramatic.
Okay. So he kind of uses her, right, to say.
Cool. Let's stop right there. This is a lot. And some tough language, right? Some really, really tough language that, do you think, well, like, they can speak in,
a lot simpler language, right? When she first comes in, your sister's drowned, Laertes, right? Drowned, oh where? Very simple, straightforward language. But then she starts going into this more, I don't know, poetic type of language. Why do you think she does that? Why might that be? She's like describing this in like such detail, right? She's like showing all the little details, and she tells about this tree that grows askant the brook. So a brook is running over, right? And what does a tree growing askant a brook mean? What do you think? Next to it? Yeah, almost like a slant, almost you could think, and like slanted, right? And it's like leaning over the brook, right? So there's like this tree, and it leans over the brook, right? That shows his hoar leaves, like white leaves in the glassy stream, right? So you can imagine that stream running by and it reflecting up these white, gray, beautiful leaves. There with fantastic garlands did she make. What do we think fantastic garlands might be? Yeah, exactly. Garlands meaning like reeds or flowers, things like that. Fantastic garlands did she make. So she's wearing all these beautiful flowers, like I was saying. Crow feathers, all these different types of flowers, these long purple flowers that they call dead men's fingers. I don't know, it's kind of a crazy image, right? Like, you can imagine like purple dead fingers. They're on pendant boughs. Does anyone know what a bough is? Yeah, perfect, exactly, right? So there on these boughs, her coronet weeds, like this crown of weeds clamoring to hang, all like trying to hang up on the tree. An envious sliver broke. What's the envious sliver? Yeah, exactly. The bough of the tree that she's hanging on breaks when down her weedy trophies and herself fell in the weeping brook. So the tree branch breaks and she falls down into the brook. What happens next, Queen? Take it away. Her clothes spread wide. Lots, yeah. Incapable. I know, no, don't apologize. You're all good. It's hard stuff. Good. All right, so let's go back, make sure we're getting all this. Again, really, really poetic, kind of flowery language, literally flowers sometimes. So she falls into the brook, and her clothes spread wide. And what does the queen compare her to? A mermaid, right? Like she falls into the brook, and it's like she becomes this mermaid, right? And a while they bore her up. What does that mean to bear her up? Bore her up. They kept her up, if air is kind of trapped in the clothes or something, they'll keep her up for a little while. And what did she do when she was kind of floating there in the brook? She sang, right? Snatches of old lauds, of little pieces of old songs, right? It's not like she was, singing a Broadway musical or something like that. Like she's singing all these strange little fragments of old songs, right? As one incapable of her own distress. What does that mean? Yeah, she's extremely distressed. She couldn't help herself swim out of there or something like that. Or like a creature native and endued unto that element. So he says either she was too upset to be able to swim away, or what? A creature native. What does it mean if you're a native creature? You weren't brought there, right? It's where you belong. So it's either that, so the queen doesn't say in this whether she's unable to swim or whether she just belongs there. She belongs in that water, right? That element, meaning that water. So maybe it was like that mermaid. She became a mermaid, and that's where she belonged or something. But long it could not be till that her garments, heavy with their drink. So what does that mean? The clothes. Yeah, the clothes got all wet and heavy, pulled the poor wretch from her melodious lay, where she's like singing and things, to muddy death. All right, Laertes, take it away.
Alas, then she is drowned. Down, too much of water hast thou, poor Ophelia, and therefore I forbid my tears. Yet it is our trick. Nature her custom holds, let shame say what it will. When these are gone, the woman will be out. Adieu, my lord. I have a speech of fire that fain would raise, but that this folly drowns it.
Let's follow Gertrude, and they all go off there. Nice. So Laertes gets confirmation, right? That's one of the first things he asks. I think Laertes' reactions in this scene are so interesting, right? About what he says. Even though he's got a little less language than the queen, it's really filled with a lot of stuff, and these even simple lines, I think, have a lot to them. So first he needs confirmation, right? And she says drown, and she has to repeat it twice, right? And then put it in your own words. Tell us what you think Laertes is saying there in that first sentence. Too much of water hast thou, poor Ophelia, and therefore I forbid my tears. What do you think? Rio, you want to take a stab at it? Coraline? Oh, yeah?
He's basically trying to be strong.
You're trying to be strong. Nice.
Not show
Yeah.
tears.
Not show tears.
He's not gonna except he's not crying
Yeah. Yeah, so he makes this, again, like poetic connection. Shakespeare's great at this, right? That yes, you're both absolutely right. That yes, he's feeling like he wants to be strong and not show any weakness in this moment. Yeah, you want to add
It's
something?
kind of like the opposite of Hamlet's reaction to his father dying.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Mourning for weakness.
It's so the opposite of Hamlet that dies, right? We'll see in this scene, like Hamlet's all depressed and things like that, and it's months afterwards, right? And here, he's come back, Laertes has come back to Denmark to take revenge, which is like what Hamlet can't decide whether or not he's going to do, right? And here, he's got more reason to cry than anybody at this point. But he doesn't let himself. He thinks that would be weak. And I love that you pointed out this beautiful connection of Ophelia being drowned in water, and he doesn't want to make more water. Let's keep talking about it. Keep going. Yeah. But yet it is our trick. Nature her custom holds. Let shame say what it will. So what does he say there? It's a tricky one. Do you have an idea? But yet it is our trick. So he says, I'm not going to cry, I'm going to forbid my tears, but yet it is our trick. I do have to. And I have to, right? It is our trick. It's that trick of humanity that we cry when we're sad, right? Nature her custom holds. So it's our custom, it's in our nature to cry when we're sad. Let shame say what it will. So if someone's going to make fun of me in this moment, I don't care. Let shame say whatever you want, right? Cool, perfect.
When stops crying, there's no peace. Not a woman anymore.
Yeah.
Crying is considered feminine.
Right? So if we connect the tears to a feminine quality as being described here, that he's literally crying out the woman in himself, which is interesting because doesn't that mean that he had a woman inside him? He had, and I say a woman, but I mean, emotions, frailty, softness. He had all these things that you know, I think here in the 21st century, we all understand that we all have these things. But here he talks about when the tears go out, so will the womanish side be out. And what do you think follows afterwards? Just if he's cried out the softness, the emotion of it, what's going to replace it? A hard shell? Nice, nice. What's the opposite element of water? Fire. Good. And if he cries out all of his water, what will be left? The fire. And what do you think fire will take form as? Anger. Nice, nice. Yeah. Anger. Fighting. Exactly. Combat. All these things. Interesting. So, what's the very next line? Adieu, my lord. Goodbye. And then?
Have a speech of fire that this folly drowns it.
Nice. I have a speech of fire that fain would blaze, but that this folly drowns it. Excellent question. Let me help you out with what we do when we
we should be using I. And then this is a little bit more difficult. We may not have time to get into this one, but
So we got a couple of things we can do. First, we can look at it and see, does it seem like any words we do know? Fain.
so think about the ideas that he presents.
Does it look like anything? Fake? Faint, nice. You see faint in there, or fake. That's true. Like feign, to feign something. I think it's spelled a little differently. Means to fake something. Cool. So we can try and insert those. You can also look it up there. So I have a speech of fire that faint would blaze. No, it's probably not making too much sense if it's fainting. A speech of fire that faking would blaze. It's a dictionary, so you can find feign in there. It should be, close to the F's. Yeah, you're getting close there. Another trick we can do is take out the word and see if we can understand the meaning by the context. I have a speech of fire that blank would blaze. How would you fill in the blank? I have a speech of fire, so I want to say fire, I want to breathe fire, right? That blank would blaze, that would... That would... I think of that would want to blaze, right? I would think of something like that, maybe. That would want to. What does the definition give us there? Gladly, willing, right? So it's kind of like want, right? That would willingly blaze, that would gladly, spread the fire all over the world, great? But that this folly drowns it, yeah, exactly. Ophelia's death drowns the fire that I would love to,
How are you guys doing?
Nice.
Awesome?
Worked through the scene really well.
Very cool.
Came up with some really cool ideas about the balance of fire and water, and how Ophelia is drowned by water.
Oh, very
and how
Love it.
Laertes' reaction is also drowned by his tears, but a fire comes out at the very end.
I love that. That's a great idea. Can I give you a couple things to think about with this scene? Yeah? Okay. So a couple of them are questions and just kind of inviting you guys to look more specifically at some of the lines. And so the first one, guys, is just thinking about the natural imagery that's used to describe, that Gertrude in particular uses to describe Ophelia's death. So here, she was an eyewitness. She saw it happen. So how does she describe it, and how do we react to it emotionally? Right? And then also thinking about the idea of water. Here it's described that she is really at home in the water, and so there's kind of this opportunity to compare her to water. So think about how she, as a young woman, and water are alike, right? And then also think about Laertes and his parting words. He kind of makes a comment about getting rid of sort of weaknesses and so forth. So just kind of play around with those ideas. Alrighty, sound good?
Awesome.
Okay, awesome. Very cool.
Will do. Cool. All right, well, let's take some turns here. Let's have someone grab a card and say what they think about it. Anyone want to start? Yeah? Cool. Great. So read the card to us, and then we'll see how well we can answer it.
How does the use of the nature imagery impact
Nice. How does the nature imagery impact our view of Ophelia's death?
You can imagine it and you can see it feels beautiful, like even though you can't see it.
Interesting. So it really brings the idea of beauty into Ophelia's death, right? And when we think of describing someone dying, beauty usually isn't the first thing that comes to mind. Why do you think the queen chooses to describe it beautifully? Who's she telling this speech to? Her brother. Yeah.
How she does.
Nice. Why? What do you think?
If she's, let's say, speaking with just some random guy.
Yeah.
Ophelia died.
The coroner, like the person who, studies death, or, he like logs how people die. So when someone dies nowadays, the coroner shows up and he comes with his clipboard and things like that, and he takes down all the facts, right? And he says, the murder knife was right there, and da-da-da-da. It's very like cold reasoning, but she doesn't do that, right? She describes it in this way that brings in beauty. Yeah, what might that effect might that have on Laertes?
Maybe he's like not as sad.
Yeah, maybe it will help him be not as sad.
Quenches anger.
Maybe so that, yeah, exactly. I mean, everyone knows Laertes has it up for Hamlet, and the queen is Hamlet's mom, probably loves Hamlet a lot, and maybe wants to, soften the blow so that he's not as angry about all this. I mean, good luck. your sister died, you're going to be really, really upset, but she can still try, right? Interesting. Nice. What about the idea of nature and Ophelia dying in nature, in this brook with all these flowers around? What's that?
Well, it very much matches Ophelia as a person.
Nice. It really matches Ophelia as a person. That's a great thing to say, because Ophelia is, in those scenes of madness, right? She's like so taken away by flowers and things like that. And then, and it matches Ophelia as person, meaning sort of what we were saying earlier, or like a creature native and endued unto that element. Almost like, in a weird way, I don't mean this in a literal way, but almost like she belongs there, right? That almost like she goes back to the nature where she was most comfortable, where it was most like her, Interesting. Anything else about nature?
And at the same time, nature kind of betrayed her.
Yeah, exactly. Because what's the very last line of her big long speech? To muddy death, right? Does that sound like a beautiful thing? Muddy death?
Also the bow breaks.
Yeah, nice. How does she describe the bow that broke? He doesn't call it a bow, he calls it a
Sliver.
envious sliver. What does envious mean? A jealous, yeah, exactly. Envy is like jealousy. And so, an envious sliver broke. So that nature, this is awesome idea, blowing my mind here, that nature actually betrayed her. This bow that, once held her up and made her all beautiful and things, all of a sudden breaks.
and it betrays her because it's envious. Maybe it's jealous of her, right? And down she falls into muddy death, and that water that was once, lifting her up has now turned into the mud that covers her and takes her life. Wow. Crazy. Tough stuff. All right, here we go. Read this, Carl. Let's talk about this guy.
Ophelia is like a creature native explore how Ophelia is similar to
How Ophelia is similar to the element of water. So we've been looking at this line a lot, right? Like a creature native and endued into that element. So as Ophelia is water, if we take Ophelia to be water, how can we think of her like water? Gentle, maybe? Nice. Water can have power, exactly, and be like a tsunami or a roaring river or something like that. Here, this isn't so much a roaring river. This is a glassy stream, right? So it's one kind of water that's a little bit more gentle. What do you think? What comes to mind when you think of water? What are some characteristics of water? Just forget about the play. Forget about Hamlet for a second. What is water? What's that?
easily broken.
Easily broken? So it breaks, so it goes, so if a river's going down and there's a big rock in the middle of the river, does it push the rock out of the way? What does it do? Yeah. It goes over it, it goes around it, right? It adjusts to what the other things are, it adjusts to the other elements, right? It
adjusts, but
at the same time what?
easily manipulated.
It's easily manipulated. Good. What happens if you pour water into a glass? What shape does it take? It takes that shape, exactly. If it's poured into a vase, it takes the shape of the vase, right? Whatever you pour water into, it's going to take that shape of whatever that vessel is. And so there's a bit of molding that it sort of does. How does water interact with other elements? We talked about earth and rock, and it would go around earth and rock. What else does water do? Think of air. How does water interact with air? When it rains. It falls through it, right? So there's a sense maybe of heaviness to water, right? Why does Ophelia have reason to be heavy? She's depressed. Yeah, she's depressed because of her father dying and Hamlet's treatment of her, right? So there's a heaviness to water. How does water interact with fire? It can evaporate, right? So if you leave water out in the sun, it will go away. It'll evaporate if there's only a little bit of water. But what does a lot of water do to fire? Nice, it can douse it. So water, with that heaviness, with that shape of it, that shapelessness of it, it can also have a factor that kind of cools, right? It can put things out, or it can extinguish things. Interesting. Nice. All right. Last question, last card here.
I wonder if you could compare fire with water with a feeling.
Nice. I wonder what Hamlet would be. Let's think about it. Let's think about a couple of characters. Let's think about the king in the play. He's the one who murdered Hamlet's father. He takes over the kingdom. He's always trying to figure out what's up with Hamlet. What element would you give him? Fire, earth, water, wind, or air?
Fire.
He might be fire because he's killed someone. Yeah. Do you have a different idea?
Possibly wind.
What's that?
Possibly wind.
Possibly wind? Why do you think that?
He's just a very flowing sort of fellow.
Oh, nice. He flows from one thing. He's one minute he's friends with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and the next minute he's trying to be friends with Hamlet, and he's friends with the king, he's friends with Polonius. He kind of flows like air, maybe. I love that. I think he's got elements of earth in him, that he's kind of the strength of the family. Once the old king is dead, he's the one
carrying the crown and carrying on the ruling of the kingdom. So he's got these elements in him. Good. What about Laertes? We see Laertes here in this one. What do we think Laertes might be? Yeah. Do you have a different idea? Fire. I agree. I think Laertes really comes across as fire. He's the one who's quick to fight. He's quick to take revenge. Excellent. And then, what about Hamlet? What do we think Hamlet might be? He's tough. He's a complicated character. It's not going to be one right answer to it. You think, what'd you say first? Fire? I think he's got fire in him. When he kills Polonius, that's surely fiery. He's a hot rock. He's like, he's kind of like earth and grounded, but really hot and interesting. I don't know, I think of that to be or not to be, that is the question speech, and where he's kind of like going back and forth. He doesn't quite know what to do or how to take action. I think of wind almost in that one, right? Something that can so easily be blown from side to side. You don't know what to do. So I see elements of air in Hamlet. Interesting. Yeah, thanks for asking that question. That's a fun game to play with this play. Examine Laertes' parting words. Why does he forbid his own tears? We talked about this already, I think, a bit. He's a proud man. Exactly. Nice. What do you think about that? What do you think about this assumption that Laertes has about men don't cry? Do you think that's, what's our relationship to that these days? It's fine? It's a good assumption that men don't cry, or it's fine? It's fine for men to cry.
Does that sound good? Okay. So let's start then, of course, with the King's Address, right? What were some of the things, and really for all of us, I think the questions are the same. What did you notice about the roles of men and women? What did you notice about the way that the characters were built? We gave you some additional questions. How did you react to those? So really the questions are the same for each of you. So King's Address group, what did you guys talk about? What were some of the observations that you made?
Looking at some of the questions you gave, was that for some reason he kept talking about himself as the royal we, even when he was talking to Hamlet.
Okay.
I'm not completely sure why. What I thought was a mistake on Claudius's part, not Shakespeare's.
Okay.
But that he wasn't used to having Hamlet actually be like a very close part of the family.
Okay.
And so he was talking to him more as someone else.
Okay. Doesn't he call him son then?
He does call him son, but that could be what he's remembering in his memory.
Okay. So you're trying to give him a little bit of credit, it sounds like. Okay.
But I really don't see any other reason.
Okay. All right. Does anyone want to add to that? Kind of piggyback off of that? And it doesn't have to be specifically the one group that worked on it. If you guys had ideas as you were working on your own, feel free to speak up too. Okay, cool. So using the royal we, it definitely impacts the way that we respond to him. Agreed? Okay, all right. Do you guys like Claudius as a character? No. What do you like about him? What do you dislike about him? I guess I'll sort of broaden it to that. Okay, you think he's evil. Why? Okay, think about the layers of that. He not only killed his brother, right? He killed his king, right? Bless you. So there are sort of layers to how evil he is, and that's why I asked the question. I know it's sort of a silly question, but there really are those sort of layers to it, right? It's not, it's not just this idea that he's betraying a family member. It's his king too, and that's real key, right?
I got one. I got
totally.
Just to add fuel to the fire, a little different point of view. I got something. All right. So, does anyone remember how we described the ghost in the play? The ghost of Hamlet, the old king. Whether he was, what he was wearing in particular. Anyone remember what he was wearing? Yeah. He was in his armor, exactly. And the old king was known for being a warmonger, for really like conquering lots of lands and really sending Denmark out on all these wars and missions and things like that. So, if we were to try and play devil's advocate here, say, what may be not the most popular opinion, how can we justify, if we were tasked with playing the king, and we were tasked with playing, one of Shakespeare's quote-unquote villains, right? But we have to approach the character from our own point of view. So knowing that old Hamlet was a warmonger and someone who brought Denmark into a lot of wars, what might be a justification that we would use as an actor to say, hey, I can understand why this new king did what he did? Anyone got an idea? Yeah, Dakota.
He didn't want the war.
Nice. The idea that, were you going to say something else?
I was going to say he didn't want anyone else to die.
Nice. So that maybe he thought by taking the king's life and replacing him as a king, he could make perhaps a more peaceful state.
Yeah, he is kind of like alone.
He is kind of Noah, right? He's not like, Hamlet's acting crazy, let me go kill him right now, right? And some people in Shakespeare's time are really quick to react like that, or in Shakespeare's plays are really quick to react, but he doesn't. He says, let's figure it out, right? Let's talk to him, let's see if we can help him somehow, right? Graham, you want to add something?
Well, with your statement, how can you make no one else die against the king?
So, can someone field that question for him? How can you make no one else die by killing someone? What are we trying to get at here? Morale.
He would stop the wars, he would pull everyone back and just hold the kingdom where it is, don't expand it or anything like that.
So by killing one person, what happens? What does he do?
Lots of people got saved.
Perhaps he saves many. Maybe that was his point of view, that by killing this one person, I'm going to save a lot. Does that make sense, Greg?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's perfect logic. I'm just saying, if we were tasked with playing a villain, just so we don't do characterizations of villains and here I'm a villain, and twist my mustache some more, right? That we have to find ways to connect with those characters. Yeah.
So just me, or this play just have some serious parallels to make that.
Oh, interesting.
Really similar. I mean, with the usurping and then the contemplation of death and then the suicides. It's really, I'm just seeing it as we're talking here.
Interesting. There's another Shakespeare play that people say was written right before Hamlet and has a lot of contemplation about killing, whether to kill or not to kill, and the effects of what happens when you kill. Anyone know what play that might be? I'll give you a hint. It's one of the histories.
Oh, I think King, what's it called? I can't think of it. King Henry VIII?
No, that's not what I was thinking of, just written right before Hamlet. It's actually, yeah. No, I talked about it today with ancient Greeks.
Oh, Julius Caesar. Sorry.
Dakota, thank you for raising your hand so nicely. What were you going to say? Julius Caesar, exactly. Brutus's character in Julius Caesar at the beginning of the play doesn't know what to do, right? Doesn't know whether to assassinate Caesar or not, and he grapples with that question. Sorry, I steamrolled over something totally different.
And I think it sort of begs the question, if we see, again, there's not that perfect science to it, but I tend to be kind of critical of Gertrude, and I feel like that, as a part of his characterization, would make me less critical. If King Hamlet is someone who's sort of blameworthy and almost a tyrant, then maybe I would be a little bit less
more understanding of why Gertrude makes the choices that she makes.
Right.
Maybe she was kind of maybe Hamlet was not a very good husband.
Maybe.
He's good.
Yeah. In the have you guys seen the Mel Gibson film version of Hamlet?
No, we're saving our impressions of Hamlet a little bit.
The beginning of the film starts very differently, and so if you haven't read the play, you kind of react to characters differently because of the way that they choose to start it. So I always find that kind of interesting.
So thinking back to what Carl said was that maybe he was a tyrant, monarch, warmonger, if you look at the King's Address, you see that Fortinbras is attacking. And you may, if you're getting to Fortinbras's mind, you might think, okay, now that warmonger is dead, maybe this new king is going to be a bit weaker. Another thing I noticed going back farther was that about how you said how he was calmer, and even though he is calmer, when he wants to take someone out, he uses calmer methods. He uses poison or trickery.
Interesting.
Definitely, yeah, less aggressive, definitely. Cool. What did you guys talk about in response to the order of the ideas that he presents? Did you get far with that? Our King's Address group? What were some of the things, like, starting from the beginning, what does he address first? Okay, King's death, all right, and as a result of the King's death, he justifies what? Yeah, his marriage, all right? So here is his opportunity to talk to the court, and the first thing that he does is essentially say, this is why I've married her, it's okay, right? Think there's any defense in that? No? All right, so, just kind of think about why he would start with that. Then what does he move to?
Fortinbras.
Okay, all right, yeah, Fortinbras, the impending invasion and all of that. I feel like one is kind of bigger than the other. Do you guys agree with that? Maybe you should have started with the invasion? Yeah. All right. It kind of seems important. Okay, and then what does he address?
He goes on with Fortinbras and his uncle, and then he talks about Laertes.
Okay, all right, and what about Laertes?
Asks him what he wants.
Okay, all right. He responds to his petition, right, to leave. Okay, so he gets through with that. And then what's the last thing that he talks about? The most personal. What is it? Do you remember? Father's death, more so, yeah, he directs it more towards Hamlet, but you're right, yeah, it's about his mourning.
He's kind of like saying, like, stop mourning, your father's father lost his.
Absolutely. There's a cycle, and so we need to accept it and move on, right? And so this shows us what about Claudius, just based on the order of ideas that he presents. Any conclusions that you can draw about him?
He doesn't really know as much about how to present things as a king as opposed to just being someone, just a court member.
Okay, all right. Anyone want to add to that? Right, so the realm of the personal, and it would seem that if Hamlet is struggling with his father's death, with his mother's marriage, and all of that, it seems like he maybe would want to address that first. And that's not, well, it is, I guess, a criticism, but just think about the order that he's presenting these ideas. It reveals something about him and his character, right? And there's something kind of curious about him from the beginning. Alrighty, make sense? Any questions about that? Anything else that resonated with this group that you wanted to bring up from the court scene or the King's Address?
He called Hamlet's grief, he characterized it somehow, the particular word that I think fits into our gallery walk and our conversation today. What does he say of Hamlet's grief? 'Tis unmanly grief. We talked about that a lot. We'll get to that. Good. I'm glad you're there.
Right? Definitely. And that is, feeling grief and grieving, that's an emotional thing. And there were a couple of groups that actually dealt with that idea. That if someone experiences emotion and shows emotion, that there's something womanish about it. And so that's something that I know that several of the groups kind of talked about. So, feel free to kind of add any ideas you put out there. Did anyone want to speak to that? Just emotion? No? Okay. All right, we'll get to it. Sounds good. Okay, cool. Sully Flesh, talk to us, guys.
That this juju solid flesh would melt.
What does that mean, Greg?
That I would die.
Perhaps.
I found this speech kind of to be very very similar to being not to be. It's contemplating the same thing, what is living and what is death. And I see many sides to Hamlet, like there's this very emotional and more feminine side, and then you have the more masculine side, like when he hears about his father's death, he just immediately thinks, kill King Claudius. And yet at the same time, he's also like, should I kill or should I not kill? Like, what is the deal? And I also see he kind of adding on to what Carl said, he says right here, let me not think on frailty, that means woman. Where, who was it that said that he was angry, I think it was Graham, at all women? And, oh no, that was really offensive. So what were you saying about that?
Like, that he was kind of mad at all the women because he felt like, because he was mad at his mom for, like, getting married so soon, and he felt like she was kind of betraying, like, all the women, and he was just kind of mad at it.
I kind of also think he's like angry at himself for feeling weak. Like he's like, why am I feeling this way? Be strong, Hamlet.
Right, and it sort of begs that question, you know, it's how are women acting and how are men acting, you know, and where's that in between? So it's this very curious thing that he's playing with. So, okay, cool. What were some of the other ideas that you guys talked about? It's a good start. Anything else that you wanted to put out there? That was it? Okay.
I got a good I think this is an important line here, that frailty, thy name is woman, can be a really, you know, when I read it the first time, it's really abrasive. I'm like, ooh, don't like this guy, right? Let's think about what he's doing there. Raise your hand if you've ever been stung by a bee. Nice. Someone describe your reaction when being stung by a bee. How did you feel? What?
I remember I was with you two, and I was just walking along, and then I just toppled.
Yeah, nice. There's some good comedy in there. What else? What are some other reactions? Yeah.
Usually it's like just like a sudden stabbing, and then a few seconds later it just kind of pops out.
There it goes. Nice. Yeah.
The first time I was stung by a bee, I cried really hard, and the second time I was just like, ow.
Interesting. Let me ask you, how did you feel about bees after you got stung by a bee?
Sorry, because it's going to be one less.
The bee is dead. And you felt bad for the bee. How generous.
I know, right? It got to look really cool in front of its friends.
It killed itself. I don't know. Yeah?
These are cute.
You thought bees were cute? Thank you for stinging me, little bee. You're so cute.
I have different opinions toward each bug. Bees are very fluffy, cute, they sting and die, so they don't do it as much. Wasps have infinite stings, so they are nasty, they are mean. And then you got the hornets, who are like bees on, like wasps on steroids that respect them. These guys are like...
All right. Well, if I maybe I had a different reaction to be stung by a bee when I was little. When I was little, or maybe other people had this reaction aren't admitting it, but when I was little, I was like, I hate bees, right? You get stung by one bee, you're like, I hate all bees, right? But what? Do I really hate all bees? What do you think? No. Why not? They give you honey. Exactly. There are wonderful things about bees. They're cute and fluffy, and you can feel bad for them when they die, right? And so, if we were to play Hamlet, and this is all of this is like training ourselves, you know, to be quick, not to pass judgment on people, because that's something that acting requires us to do a lot, which is we have to be Hamlet. We can't be, you know, Hamlet, the woman hater, and blah, 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 blah. right? It's not going to be interesting to watch, but here's a person who's been hurt by a woman and perhaps we might think makes a mistake and says this about all women and overreacts to something. And I don't know, I just thought my B experience was something similar to what Hamlet did. And so, if I had this line, I may be able to say, okay, well, me, Carl, obviously doesn't feel that way about women, but I can see why Hamlet might do that. And so we have to kind of like put ourselves in their shoes.
What about a reaction of, like, instead of anger, like fear, almost? Like, for example, if you got stung by a bee, I wasn't angry at bees because it's silly, they're like insects. I was afraid of them.
Yeah, so maybe our, pain in our life makes us insecure about fear. Perhaps Hamlet in this is, feels so much pain and that line is coming from a place of fear. That could be an interesting choice for an actor. Nice. Thanks, Steve.
And I think he can also use that, or he does use that when he projects it onto Ophelia, right? When he is awful and mean to her in the nunnery scene, which we're going to get started with in just a second, I mean, he's able to really push that on her when really she's not really done much wrong, right? Right? But maybe it is taking that, that fear and that anger, and just kind of pushing it on her, so it's easier for him to do it because of that experience. Definitely. Cool.
We did a really interesting exercise in our scene that we're going to get to, but I want to ask you this question. If you had to think of the elements, earth, air, what else? Fire. What else? Water. Yeah, exactly. If you had to think of the elements, what elements are in this speech? Right at the top. What elements do you see in this speech? Yeah, great. You started us off with the first line.
Well, if you're speaking it, you don't really see it, but see like nitrogen coming out of it.
Oh, so in air there's nitrogen. Okay. But like Shakespeare's using some poetic language here, right? He describes the flesh and doing something. Yeah.
There's a metaphor to tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed.
So he compares Denmark to Earth, and like Earth is this unweeded garden.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm looking at the very first line. Yeah. Fire. I definitely see fiery aspects of this speech, right? There's lots of exclamation points, fire, right? It almost sounds like fire. But I'm just looking at that very first speech that Graham started us off with, the very first sentence. He wants his flesh to become something. He wants his flesh to be what? Nice. That he's talking about himself melting, right? And then thawing, which means, like ice cubes thaw, melt out, and resolve itself into a dew, right? Like a dew kind of, collects as like, only that it could become water. Interesting.
Definitely. Awesome. Cool. Anything else that you guys want to put out there for Sully Flesh? You good? Okay. Nice job. Okay. Our nunnery scene. What were some of your ideas that you guys were talking about? I think we're page.
Yeah, page 129.
They're watching Hamlet and Ophelia. King Claudius and
Say again?
Watching now the
King
Pharaoh.
Claudius and Claudius are watching Hamlet and Ophelia.
Okay. And that was actually something you guys spent some time with, right?
Line 95, page 1, or actually 96.
Okay, yes. They came up with a new word to describe it. All right, so kind of talk us through what you were discussing. So the idea, the question was posed, does Hamlet know that they're being watched? Is this something where's their evidence? And so what were some of the things you guys pointed out?
Because Hamlet threatened King Claudius, and he probably wouldn't do that if he didn't know they were watching.
Okay.
And that nest means yes, but I also mean maybe.
Okay, alrighty.
So in this thing, is Claudius and I'm watching this conversation? Because I don't know.
Nest. There's evidence, we talked about that as being evidence that he knew, right? And we looked at Let's see. We were looking at on page 133, line 159. I say we will have no more marriage. Those that are married already, all but one, shall live. And so we were talking about that as potentially being a threat to Claudius. So why would they say that? Or why would he rather say that if he didn't know Claudius was watching? Right?
Is Claudius watching? He is.
Yeah, and that's what we were trying to answer. And I also pointed out to the girls that when he is speaking to Ophelia earlier in that scene, 141, he actually stops himself. Go thy ways to a nunnery. Where's your father? I'm like, what does that have anything to do with what they're talking about? So that could be an indication that maybe he's sort of messing with her a little bit. Thoughts about that? Do you buy that as evidence? Kind of? Okay. All right, cool. Why does that matter? Why do you think I asked that question? And that's really to everyone. I mean, thinking about the nunnery scene, why would it matter that he knows that they're being watched or not? Any ideas?
Because then he couldn't, because that prevents him from being able to like drop his act and allow himself to actually be normal with Ophelia, and that could be the, that is certainly the reason that she drowned herself.
Okay.
So it didn't allow him to like say, okay, this is an act, I'm just doing this, certain reasons, just don't tell me.
Okay, so he's being mean and awful to her as a show?
Yeah, I would say.
Do you guys agree with that? Yeah? Okay. So think about then the value of this. I mean, he's actually using her as an instrument, if you will, to sort of further everyone's idea or image of him in this image of madness, if you will. All right, cool. We also talked a little bit about the double meaning. Do you guys want to talk about that? I know that was the last thing that you guys talked about. So we can actually kind of talk about it together. This is the uncomfortable part of the conversation, a little bit. Okay, so you want me to take the lead on it at the start? Yeah, okay. So we talked a little bit about the double meaning. In this scene in particular, I mean, Shakespeare was all about double meanings, all right? And in this scene, he kind of starts off by showing that, or really by ordering her to a nunnery. And there are really two meanings to nunnery during that time, all right? So the surface is a nunnery is what? Yeah, where nuns live, right? It's a convent, all right? But then there was also a nunnery could be a brothel. It's something that they talked about as sort of a mocking way of talking about certain ladies that were a part of their community. Yes? Okay. What is a brothel? Yes, Carl.
A place where people go to pay for sex.
Okay. So think about what this implies. Thank you, Carl. So think about what he is saying to her, all right? Because we agreed, ladies, that this is a scene that he's being mean and awful to her. That's the way that we typically read it, right? Get thee to another. He is criticizing and mocking her sexuality, her choices in that department and all of that. So that's one part of it, that's one meaning. But then the second meaning, if we were to say get thee to a nunnery, why would he tell her to go to a convent? What do you think?
Go to a convent, as I was saying, like he's basically calling her a prostitute.
Okay, so you think that it sort of plays into it, right?
Yeah.
A convent was also where someone would go for protection. How does that change the way that we read this? I'm not excusing what he says to her, because he's mean and awful and nasty to her. But if he says to her, get thee to a nunnery, meaning go somewhere that you're protected, that you're safe. Okay, all right, who would he be trying to protect her from?
Him?
Okay, him what? Why? I think that's a fair answer. Yeah, why?
Maybe just like, I'm gonna hurt you soon, so you probably better go somewhere.
Okay, fair. Do you guys agree with that? I think that's definitely, it works. Yes, what else?
Also, is he really involved with killing Claudius?
Okay.
So maybe he's like trying to protect her just in case he gets it.
Okay.
what are Claudius's and Polonius's tool in figuring out whether Hamlet is really crazy or just faking crazy or up to something? What did they use as a tool? What's that? Exactly, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are one of the tools. They're like, hey, old buddy of Hamlet, go and figure out what's really happening. And they have another tool up their sleeve. That's someone that they use as a tool, basically. In this scene. Ophelia, right? Yeah, exactly. That she's being used like a pawn in their political game of trying to find out what Hamlet's up to. And, you know, Hamlet's got some bloody scenes ahead and plotting some bloody revenges. And who knows, you know, what they would sacrifice in order to, you know, keep the king around. So they're, you know, that's what I did when I played this role of looking at it, is that, you know, that he needs her to go to a place of protection. And there is that other meaning in there, and we can't ignore it, you know. Why might Hamlet be upset with Ophelia? What did she just do at the very beginning of this scene? What did she do?
Rose, you talked about this, I think, at the start.
She gives him something.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. The gifts that he gave her.
Yeah. So they had, you know, they were in love, and they had all these like love letters, and, you know, probably little, you know, I don't know, whatever, dolls or, you know, whatever that they like gave each other, and little roses and things, and she gives them all back to him, right? So how might he, you know, you can imagine how he might feel about that.
It's like, oh, I never loved you.
Right. There's, do you think there's any lines in here where Hamlet speaks from the heart and says something that he really means? Or is it all things that he's saying is just to show that? I did love you once. Yeah, perhaps that. Maybe she's broken his heart and he tries to break her heart back and said, you know, I don't love you anymore.
Definitely.
I'm looking around.
At the end, he's like, oh, I always loved her. Remember when she was drunk? He was like that.
What's that?
When she drowns. Yeah, he was drunk. He was like, oh, I always loved her.
Yeah, nice, exactly. Good recall, Dakota, that at the end, he says, you know, I've always loved her. 40,000 brothers could not make up my sum of love. I've loved her so much, right? So he is saying that he's always loved her there. He talks about people and about, you know, people in general in this. And he says, you know, people are breeders of sinners, right? And that they are, you know, people like crawling between heaven and earth. And what else does he say about people around that area? I'm looking line 130, or page 131, and this big speech, you know, telling her to go to a nunnery. People are horrible, blah, 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 horrible. We are errant knaves all. Believe none of us. What do you think he might be meaning? He says, believe none of us.
People are like liars and stuff.
Yeah, people are all liars. That's one meaning. And as Casey said, this is like packed with like, so everything he says almost have a double meaning to it. Who else does he not want her to believe in a certain way? None of us. So the king, the court, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, the queen, your father, your brother, and thank you, Casey. And me, right?
And that makes it so sad to me, though, because here he's like, he's attacking her, he's being so mean, and he's actually been saying, like, don't believe any of us. You know, so he's kind of giving her that cue, like, you know, everything I've said here, forget. You know, that makes it really sad to me. So, cool. Anything else for this scene that you guys wanted to talk about?
I got a question. What do you think about Ophelia's last speech? What's that about? What do you picture her? If you're a director and you're directing an actor and say, perform this speech, what would you tell them to do? Oh, I'm not thinking too much time. Okay, well, let's not worry about it. Let's move on.
This is, just to kind of speak to that, when I studied at the Folger this summer, this was my scene. I was partnered with someone and I got to play Hamlet and she was Ophelia. And I left and I actually climbed up there. They had the setting still set up for from Rosencrantz and Guildenstern or Death, which is another play. And so I got to climb up and I watched her give that last speech, and she was just so vulnerable and and alone because this man that she loved, essentially had just kind of wrecked her world, if you will. And so it was this very, very tender moment. So I'll kind of add that as my 2 cents as a response to that question, Carl.
Cool, thank you. Nice. Yeah, we'll have fun exploring it.
Right? Okay, so our last one then is Gertrude's. What were some of the things that you guys were talking about? I know that the 3 of you were working as a small group, and Carl, I kind of included you in on that.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I'm gonna pass the floor to Rio and Coraline to let them get the conversation started.
Cool.
Well, it's all a description of suicide, basically.
Okay.
But it's made as beautiful as possible. And it's Shakespeare describes it very well. There's a lot of second meanings to a lot of these things. Like like a creature native and endeared to that element. It's a very interesting one. Kind of someone who belongs in the water. But
Definitely. Her death is, her death is almost beautiful, right? And there's something very sort of conflicting about that. How can death be beautiful? And, it's like she's being embraced by the water. And so it is, that natural imagery is there. And I agree, it's very, it resonates. It kind of sticks with you.
it's also, you can kind of see it as she dies in nature, but at the same time, the reason of her death is nature.
Okay.
Because she drowns and also the branch breaks.
Okay.
So it's kind of she dies in the place that she knows, but it's also the cause of her death.
Okay. I like that.
We talked about the elements too. Coraline, do you have anything to say about the elements that we talked about in this? Totally put you on the spot. What's that? Yeah. What elements do we see in this? I'll open up to the group. What elements do you see in this a lot? Great. Water. Nice. Good. Earth. Cool. How is water treated in this? Yeah.
Kind of like the killer.
The killer.
It killed Ophelia.
Drowns her. It's the,
But is it a violent death? Is it something that sort of strikes us that, we're bothered by it? Think about how Gertrude tells it. It kind of goes back to some of the things that you pointed out.
Peaceful.
Right, there's
Beautiful.
there's this certain peace
She's
to
laying in a glassy street.
Right, what is she doing as she drowns? I mean, she's picking flowers and then she's on the branch and the branch breaks, so she falls in. What are her words?
She recites old laws.
Right, and she's singing essentially. I mean, it's this very peaceful moment for her. I remember when I used to read this, I would get so mad at Gertrude. It's like, why aren't you doing anything? You're watching her die. You're watching her kill herself. But the way she describes it, I think, kind of pulls me back from that. And sort of, there is this peace to it. All right. So think then. I want to kind of play around with yes.
I think it would be actually better for her to die because she's in a lot of trauma.
Okay. All right.
She wanted to die.
Okay, so her death kind of saves her from that. Okay. All right. Good point.
What I would say is that back to the thing with the water being the killer, if you look at the speech, you see Gertrude says that the water held her up for a bit. So this, I don't know, it's kind of the water sentience, but it seems like the water was like giving her a chance. And it's like some sort of subconscious wanted to die.
Okay.
Stayed in.
Okay. Maybe.
Yeah. And what's the final phrase of that speech? The very, very last phrase. To Malcolm?
I have a speech of fire that fain would blaze.
Oh, sorry. I mean of the Queen's speech to muddy death, right? And mud is the combination of water and earth, right? And what happens when you mix the two, they become mud. And the mud is what finally takes away her last breath, right? And it's earth, and it's the reality, and it's her reality, right? That's taken over and taken her over, and she's kind of returned to water, mermaid-like in this way. So,
Right, definitely. And sort of playing into the idea of her reality, think about her and how she is, you know, if the water is sort of embracing her, and it is a part of her, really, because it is, it's a part of all of us. So let's kind of compare her then to water. Kind of think about the similarities there. You know, water is, you know, it takes on the shape of what it's contained by. Agreed? Okay, so think about what she is contained by in her reality. Think about the men in her life, for example. Okay, Claudius, right? Her king. Okay, Polonius and, okay, all right, so Polonius and Laertes, right? Right, because the men in her family, I mean, really, you would go from your father's home to your husband's home, right? And so they, you know, are sort of, they're containing her, if you will. And then you said Hamlet too, right? Because as a prospective husband, he should treat her in a certain way, but then we just went through the nunnery scene and he's not treating her the way that he would, you know, if he wasn't trying to prove something. And so she is the water in a sense, and because she is sort of confined, because she's contained by all of these, you know, men in her life, but all of these norms that exist. You know, maybe it is, to kind of come back to what Dakota said, you know, maybe it is that she's, you know, better in this new place that she finds herself in. Alrighty, cool. Anything else that you guys talked about that you wanted to kind of put out there?
what's the opposite of element of water? Fire. Who can read me the very last sentence that Laertes speaks? Wasn't spoken yet.
Avoid eye contact. Avoid eye contact.
Mimi, can you read Laertes' last speech? Last sentence. He says, "Adieu, my lord. I have a speech." No, never mind.
Okay.
Hit it, Marilla.
And it's here.
No. Wrong.
Wrong.
Sorry.
Marilla.
Adieu, my lord. I have a speech of fire that fain would blaze, but that this body becomes it.
Good. We had to look up what fame meant. Corlin, you remember what fame means? Yeah, willingly, gladly, right? So I have a speech of fire, so I could, speak, breathe fire, right? That would gladly blaze out, but that this folly drowns it, right? His tears are drowning his fire that he has for this moment.
What did you guys make of, and this is just above where we were just reading, when these are gone, the woman will be out? Did you play around with that line at all?
Yeah, we did. But what does the group think? We've done a lot of talking. What does the group think? Let's see, sorry. When these are gone, my tears are gone, the woman will be out. What do you think? What's that metaphor? What's that? Say it again, that's loud. Oh, well, I didn't even think of that. Sure, that the woman will be out, meaning Ophelia will be in heaven?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Interesting. I thought of something different. Can anyone else think of a different interpretation? Not that one is right or one is wrong, but yeah, Ray, you want to explain?
Well, it's basically emotion, in Laertes' point of view, is a feminine trait. And so he doesn't want to cry, but nature makes him cry.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as he stops crying, the woman will get out and just be masculine.
Yeah, that he's going to cry out the woman in himself. Which I thought was interesting, which means that he has a woman in himself. He understands that we all have. feelings and emotions, and it's our nature to have it so. We all have a man inside of us, you know, the characteristics of masculinity inside us. We all have characteristics of stereotypical femininity in ourselves. And he says, I'll cry out the woman, the softness, and replace it with a fire eventually.
And it's still curious to me that the emotion is associated with the feminine. You know, it's, why can't the masculine in us be, emotional as well? And that kind of brings us really to looking at all four scenes and also kind of coming back to this idea that Shakespeare is building these characters in a certain way. Like, what did you guys recognize about men? Were masculine traits and women and feminine traits. What did you guys think about the ways that he was building these characters? What was he trying to say?
I think that the men always had, well, not all men had this component, but a lot of them did have a component of, they were more angry most of the time. They were very, very, they were triggered very fast.
Okay.
In their anger. And then the women, they seem more calm and they just kind of acted like sometimes they're sad, but Ophelia and Gertrude, they're just mostly mourning or like not being triggered very fast.
Okay. Alrighty. And I may be misunderstanding, just to kind of springboard though, the idea that the women sort of seem kind of rational versus the men who have those irrational moments of, like, I need to react. What am I going to do? That impulsivity, that we see like in Romeo, for example. It's sort of this weird thing to see, these characters built in this way. And I agree with your analysis of them. Good. You want to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say that back element, I would say that the women are more water and the men are more fire.
Okay. Why do you say that?
Well, the women are more water, which is like emotions and stuff like that, and the men are more fire, which is like sudden and hot fire.
Definitely.
We played a fun little game in our group of named elements of certain characters. So what elements do you see in Laertes? We see him as what? He's...
Fire.
Heidi?
Fire.
Fire, definitely. That's what we agreed on too. Laertes is fire. We thought Ophelia is like water. What about the other characters? What about the king?
Water.
Maybe water. Is he kind of like, someone else said that. Is he kind of, is friends with Gildas or Rosicrucius, friends with the queen, or he's kind of nice to Hamlet at first, even though he killed his dad, sorry. But, cool. Nice. Yeah, well, we can keep going with that, but...
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's definitely value to it. I mean, think too, like, anyone want to add anything about these characters? Do you guys agree with Charlie's analysis?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like Shakespeare, showed Ophelia as a weak character.
Okay.
Much more weak than most of the characters.
Okay. All right. Do you think he did it for a reason, for a positive reason or a negative reason?
I don't know.
Okay. What do you guys think? I'll put it to everyone. What do you think he's trying to say with Ophelia? He uses her for a purpose.
I got a question then. Describe to me the difference between a weak person and a victim. What might be the difference?
I would say that someone who's weak just doesn't have a lot of power, whereas someone who's a victim is being the victim of something.
The victim can't help it, really. The person could probably do something too.
So a weak person might be someone that it's within their power to fight back and is unable to. A victim is a victim of their circumstances, so to speak. Yeah.
A super strong guy can be a victim from a boy or something. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah. Even the strongest of person may be a victim to, a car crash or something like that, right? And there's nothing you can do. It's a car crash, right? So I think that as we move forward, and as we play these characters and start to embody them, there's a trap of saying that passing judgment, so to speak, on a character and saying that they're evil, they're weak, they're name any characteristic you want, selfish, jealous, all these negative things that we can think of. But it's our job to empathize with them, to understand them, and to portray them and share with the world. And so, my suggestion to the Ophelia would be, don't worry about whether she's weak or strong. Who knows what that really means? But that you've been a victim to some horrible, horrible things, and people treat you as a pawn. People break up with you. People die that you love, and gosh, how could any of us undergo what she goes through and not feel like we want to break?
So let's kind of bring this then, these scenes, let's bring it back to this idea of gender roles. Shakespeare is saying something. He's questioning the roles that we play as men and women, and masculinity and femininity. So what can we say about what he's saying? How he's commenting, how he's criticizing, however we want to say it. What do you guys think that he's trying to say about roles and men and women in society?
I would say that he was trying to say that either one would be either.
Okay, why do you think that?
Well, I mean, if you see it, he has, not necessarily in Hamlet, but he has in other plays, he has some very strong women and some very weak men.
Okay.
So I would say that he's trying to show that there can be stuff like that, and they don't have to be outcasts, and they don't have to be heroes.
Okay, all right. You said not necessarily in Hamlet, so do you see Gertrude and Ophelia as weak characters?
Gertrude, certainly.
Okay.
And Ophelia at the end, yes. At the beginning, maybe less. But weak.
Okay. Alrighty. What else? Other ideas? About what he's saying about roles and men and women? Just draw some conclusions about what you've already recognized in the characters.
They're all kind of stereotypes of their own gender.
Okay, talk to us about that. I like that.
So, like, Ophelia and Gertrude are both, I think everyone knows, the weaker women.
Okay.
And then the men are the strong guys who react.
Okay. So do you think Shakespeare is sort of using that to kind of mock this system? Sort of? Okay, yeah, what do you think?
I don't know, I feel like Shakespeare wrote it like this.
Okay.
Because I remember when in Macbeth, Lady Macbeth was like yelling at Macbeth, "Don't you do this, dummy!" And yeah, he was kind of counting like, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool.
Of course, there is that whole question, it's a bit off topic, but that whole question about whether Shakespeare was maybe a woman in disguise.
Okay.
In which case, that might actually give him a bit of good reason, right? Like that.
Okay. Well, does he have to be a woman in disguise?
No, I'm just
Okay.
saying.
But you like the idea.
It's another,
Okay.
it could be another reason.
Okay. Gotcha. All right, cool. Anything else you want to put out there? No?
I got one last thing.
Okay, cool.
I have a theory. You all tell me what you think about this theory. That everyone, every single one of us, feels every emotion ever, in different degrees, but that we all feel all emotions. What do you think? No? Yes? No? Maybe? I mean, take it to the extreme. Think of Mother Teresa, the most, one of those saintly people. Does she feel every emotion? Anger? Hatred? Do you think? Yeah. Go, no, go ahead.
Is Teresa the mother of Jesus?
No, she was like a saint who was very benevolent and generous and things. What about, who's the worst person we can think of? Hitler. Does Hitler, did he feel every emotion? Did he love? Do you think he loved? Say what stuff? Yeah. You? I think you're right. Go. No? Okay. Yeah, Dakota.
He might have had children, or did he poison his wife, his dog, and his children? When he poisoned himself. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for the bright information.
Thank you. Rhea. What's that? You love dogs? Interesting.
Yeah, I was.
He loved art.
Art as well. Yeah, yeah. So even, the most horrific person that we can think of perhaps had more human sides to it. And so I think it, draws back to our conversation about men and women and what they felt, were attributes of femininity and what they felt were attributes of masculinity. But here it is our job in the 21st century to we have to look at this with a bit of a filter and say, we look at those posters back there and they probably didn't have the best access to resources and modern psychology that we have and education and the internet and all those kinds of things that help us gain this broader perspective on humanity. But when we have to play these characters, we have to play murderers, we have to play tyrants, we have to play suicidal people, things that we may think that we don't normally feel, but we have to find it within ourselves, and that's what's so interesting and powerful about the tool of theater, why I think, Shakespeare wrote plays rather than, wrote books or something like that, because I think that there's something that's special in this particular medium of art in this form.
Absolutely. Definitely. So he started the conversation then about roles and masculinity and femininity and all of that. And so hopefully it's a conversation that we can continue to have, and sort of work with this idea of challenging this system and that it's okay to be different, and it's not we shouldn't be alienated because we don't fit a certain stereotype or mold or whatever we want to call it. And so hopefully that's a conversation that we'll continue to have during our lifetimes, and
continue to shape as well.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about purple. It used to be the royal color. Now I think of it as a purple color. The best part about this whole conversation is that we, all of us, each one of you, looking at you, Heidi, looking at you, me, Charlie, everyone in this room has a stake in reinventing what we all think of as, masculinity, femininity, whatever the norm is. We have a chance to shape that. And so, by God, I do not think our Hamlet has to be a man. It could be a man, but, actually, we're going to have many Hamlets when we stage this play. There's going to be multiple Hamlets, and I imagine there'll be multiple genders probably playing that, but maybe not. We have the job now of being able to shape how other people think about this play, and where you can read this play with a 50s idea of it, and think about how everyone's the women are weak, the men are warmongers and things like that, and kill each other. You can think about all these negative stereotypes, but here we have some inspired text, and we have the chance to reshape it in our own way and present that to the world and change it.
Well, my hair kind of blue, and most of my friends who are girls, their favorite color is pink. And people are like, oh yeah, girls like pink.
Right.
A lot of my friends who are girls don't really like pink.
Yep.
It's a cool color, but not my favorite color.
Right.
Yep.
But just because you like pink doesn't mean you don't like blue or all of that. So cool, very cool. Questions?
So what do you get something?
I know boys favorite color is pink.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I was just at a party, there was lots of guys in pink.
Yes.
They actually used to be switched around where boys were supposed to like pink and girls were supposed to like red.
Exactly. So all these norms that we have, that we've inherited from our ancestors in our history, you know, they're subject to revision, and we can revise them, and we're tools in that revision. So
Awesome. All right, cool. So the last 20 minutes, I think we'll have you guys sort of work in the scenes and maybe look at sort of rehearsing and think about how you see the scene on stage. And then next week, you guys will work?
We'll be working it. We'll definitely be continuing with this, with these scenes and rehearsing them a bit more. I would say, did the other groups read through the whole scenes? Did you read through with the characters that were assigned? Cool. So if you've done that, then I think, if you haven't done that, you can kind of do read-throughs of it. But if you haven't, then I think trying it up on its feet and seeing what happens, I don't think we'll have a chance for everyone to share, but individually, all the groups can put the scene up on its feet, you know? At this point, kind of,
Well, Julie and Graham are in two scenes.
Yes. Join the Hamlet, King's Address to the Hamlet speech, so that you can join in with your Laertes and Polonius lines there. Wrong.
We have one line in our scene that's...
Charlie, will you read that Quartamon and Voltamon lines? Because you're not yet Hamlet. You're not yet the king at that point. Yeah, Julie.
We didn't print out the...
I've got an extra. Cool. Break up into your groups. Put the scene up on its feet. See what happens. Be generous with your fellow actor. Casey and I will come around and we'll just take little peeks of what y'all are doing.
Should we be doing blocking?
Yeah, block it. I mean, you know, don't rehearse anything. Just be spontaneous. See what happens. Yes. So. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean you. I meant Dakota. I'm sorry. I meant Dakota. You take the Quartamon Voltamon lines. My bad. You're on the Ophelia Hamlet scene, switching halfway through. No, you're only gonna have one Ophelia today. Titan will be the only Ophelia, and you will switch halfway through. Yeah, just for today. Yeah, read it through up on your feet. Try and see what happens if you know, if this was the performance. I know it's not, obviously, reading all the pressures of a performance, but just for fun. And yeah, what do you find this place over there? Maybe a little more, a little nicer.
Why are you recording?
What's that?
Why are you recording?